folks, this is Lurch from Ireland Gaming and welcome back to another episode of From the Depths. I'm here to give you another little demonstration on the advanced cannons that have just been released in the last day or two. Now, we're in Devtest 1.853 at the minute, and I'm going to run over just how to build a very basic cannon. I have put together this little fella to demonstrate a few of the basic principles of how the cannon system works and sort of how to achieve some basic goals. So without further ado, I'm going to get started in putting together this exact cannon again, but I'll build it with you guys so that you know how everything fits together, and I'll try and explain the couple of parts that go into making this. Now, we will go straight into build mode. You'll see I've still got the shell customization thing there that I made in the previous one, and I have set up a basic shell that you can have a look at. I also want to mention, I'm sorry, I'm still a bit hoarse. I'm still sick, recording this fairly shortly after the previous video. But here we have a simple gunpowder casing, gunpowder casings to give you some shell velocity, and some solid warhead bodies and an AP capped head. Very, very simple kinetic warhead. Now the AP cap heads, as we mentioned in the previous video, are capable of fragmenting, and you'll see, I'll just turn the UI on a second here so that you can see. We'll fire a shot here, and you'll see at the top you've got 1257 kinetic and 77.45 blah 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 fragmentation damage. Now, these are pretty long range little shells. It's quite an effective cannon. You'll see it does a lot of damage. But yeah, let's just get started in building it, and I can run over just exactly what goes into making one of these. So first things first. Oh, another thing to get distracted by. I noticed something very, very cool about these. If you put these wood blocks down on their own, or if you put two together, they do this cool thing here. Why did the first one not go? Now, that previously, for me, did... Oh, yeah, there we are. A little pillar thing. But the bottom one had a special base type as well. I guess that's still in development. But sorry, I keep getting distracted by all the cool things in this patch. Right, let's get a wood beam here, just to make it the same as the old guy. And I will start by going through the very, very first part that you're going to be putting onto every advanced cannon. It's your firing pin. This is kind of like the old firing pin. Let's just place it down here. This backside, or the back of the rear of the firing pin, is shown by this flatter side, and the front is the slightly more sloped one. And this is where you'll be putting your mantlet or your cannon barrel, and I'll get onto that next. Now, the advanced cannon barrel you can connect to the sides and to the top with 6-way connectors. I'm not sure about the bottom. You can also set the number of barrels in the Q menu, and this has a couple of effects, and I'll come back to them in a little bit after I've explained the parts that go into making this, but this dictates your barrel width as well. But more about that when we get the gauge increases. Now, next thing you want to put on is your mantlet, and you'll see a list of little mantlets here. There's some really cool ones. There's this massive 3x3 one, or the tall elevation barrels. These are really cool. But you'll see on the right hand side here, these give you a certain amount of elevation and azimuth, much like elevation barrels did before, or the certain configuration of barrels. Now that is all controlled by the mantlet and the gauge of your barrel. So if you increase your cannon gauge, you will see here that it says between 10 and 30 degrees. Now 30 degrees is for a minimum gauge barrel, and 10 degrees is for a maximum gauge barrel. And again, more on that when we get to gauge increases. But like I say, a higher gauge gives you a much narrower cone of fire. So you'll see it's 10-10 here as opposed to 30-30. That's significant. But yeah, these are the different types of mantlets, and you can see yourself just in the tooltips what they all do. They're fairly self-explanatory, but they're very, very cool. Next on the list, we have a 6-way connector that we're going to bolt onto the side. Oh wait, hold on a second. We have to put a mantlet on. I'm just going to go with the very, very basic mantlet. You'll see here the sort of cylindrical side always seems to go towards the firing pin. It seems to be sort of a recurring theme in the other ones as well, because if we select this one, you'll see sort of the flat circular thing on the left hand side, and that's where you want to connect it to the firing pin. So you'll see that's connected to the cannon now because it's giving me all this information. Next, like I say, we want to move on to a 6-way connector. This is very, very similar to a 6-way connector in the old cannons. In fact, it's basically identical. You use it for connecting to things. You can connect these to the firing pin. I believe you can connect them to gauge increases as well. And yeah, that's hold on. There we go. Yeah, you can connect to the top of the firing piece. Anyway, next in the list is the gauge increase. And this is your sort of bread and butter, and how this all relates to the shell customization is quite complicated, but I'll show you nonetheless. Right, this increases your gauge, your barrel width. So if we put 1 on and go up here and have a look, we have a 0.012 shell diameter. It's the third one from the top there. We take it back off, we go back down to the default gauge, which is 0.06. Now, if I put on 4 of these, I now have a 0.29 shell diameter. Let's go all the way to the top at 8. Is that 8? That's 8. And this gives us the maximum shell diameter of 0.5. That is a half a meter shell. Bloody enormous. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to go back and show you what the number of barrels do. So if we scale this up, in fact, I should really just, I'll put a couple of barrels on here so you can see, and I will cover barrels in a second, but just so that you can actually see what this does, because it looks nifty as hell. You'll see the barrels, whenever you reduce the number of them, they get fatter again, and then up to 6, they're very skinny, and this has a direct effect. You'll see now that even though this was 0.5 shell diameter before, it's now down to 0.15, and this is what you need to plug into your shell configuration on your ammo customizer to see what sort of stats that this shell will have. So I'm going to go over to the take a break from building the cannon, and we'll go over to the customizer and see how this works. So we have a cannon there with 8 gauge increases, but, and this is the maximum, you cannot make a bigger cannon than this, its barrel width is actually 0.15. So the shell diameter is 0.15. Let's plug that in here. And like I said, this shell diameter is not a configuration tool. This is what it's for. If you plug your gauge increase in here, it will show us all the stats that we need to make a cannon around what we have. So this says we only need 2 gauge increasers. That's fine, but that's because it's a 6-split barrel, so it's having a vastly reduced number. The optimal barrel length shows you how long the barrel is going to be to get to an accuracy of 1 or an inaccuracy of 1. You can obviously make it longer than that to improve the accuracy further. The optimal barrel length will burn all the propellant and ensure the shell attains maximum muzzle velocity. If your shell leaves the barrel before it runs out of propellant, based on the number of gunpowder casings that you have at the top, the shell will not get to its maximum velocity. It's obviously more efficient if it's shooting its propellant into a compressed space inside the barrel. If it gets outside, it's wasting energy. Next on this little list is the length of shell rack needed, and that means that we need a 2-meter shell for this current gauge. And the length of the shell racks I'll go into in just a little minute, because we're getting them very soon. Shell length, ignoring casing, that's just the actual projectile. It's not really relevant for building the cannon as far as I can tell. Expected muzzle velocity tells you your stats, how many ammo cost. The reload time from clip is kind of important. This is how long it takes for the ammo to get from an autoloader into the barrel. So this is your reload time per autoloader, and we'll get into that whenever we get to autoloaders. Time to pass the shell to the ammo clip. This is how long it will take for the shell to get from your shell customizer to the ammo clips, based on the number of input and output node thingies that you have. What are these called again? Sorry, I had to drop into build mode. Ammo output feeders. And again, I'll get to them. I did cover them in the previous video, but I'll show you them in practice here in a little minute. Expected time for barrel cooldown after firing. I believe higher gauge increases that. You see, yeah, if we put it to a 0.5 barrel, it's 145 seconds for the barrel to cool down after firing, which is really significant. But we don't have to worry about that quite so much. I will cover coolant things in a second. Expected recoil the recoil, expected kinetic damage, armor piercing, all these lovely stats. And this is all based on the shell diameter. Now, like I said, this is not a configuration tool. This is just a tool for showing exactly how the shell will react when you plug it into a different cannon. So I can use this same shell customization to plug into this little cannon I have on the left, which only has 1 gauge increase on it and a single barrel, and it has a shell diameter of 0.12, and it only needs a 1 meter thing. But this ammo feeder will still feed into that, no problem. And like you see, if I put it down to 0.12, we only need 1 gauge increaser. We have an optimal barrel length of 5.8 and a 7.7 meter propellant burn, which is what I have on that cannon. It's an 8 meter, but we only need a 1 meter shell rack. And that's a big difference. But we'll carry on with building the cannon now that I've covered some of that, and we'll start actually getting this sort of able to fire. Now, I've covered the gauge increases. Barrels are fairly simple. They increase your longer barrels are more accurate, and like I said in the previous section there, the different effects on the barrel are dictated by the shell that you're firing. So a longer barrel is required for something with a lot more propellant because it takes longer to burn it all off, and there are various other effects on how the barrel relates to things. Mostly though, a longer barrel means a more accurate shot. Fairly simple. Now, next on the list is the muzzle brake. This is a simple anti-recoil mechanic, or lowering recoil mechanic. And all this does is, you'll see here, we haven't got anything loaded yet. I'll actually go over to this cannon and demonstrate it. The shell, where is it? Where is the reload, or the recoil? Recoil force, that's 17843. Let's go and plunk one of these on the end. And you'll see it's 16059, so we have reduced the recoil a little bit. You can only have one though. There are other ways to reduce the recoil of a cannon, but I'll go into that in probably a future episode. I don't want to cover them here. I've discovered they're a little bit glitchy in this version, so we'll cover them in a future episode. But that's what the muzzle brake does. Simply reduces the recoil of the cannon, but you can only stick one on the end. Now, next, I'm going to cut away a load of these to demonstrate this, so we can make it a little bit like the other cannon. We have the gauge increase left and right splitter. Now this can be rotated to get it to go in different directions. And, sorry, excuse me, coffee McThroaty gag. This lets you put it in different orientations, so I can have up, down, or I can turn it left and right, or you can do things like this so you can get them going at funny angles. Very useful for routing your gauges so that you can build the cannon that you really like. These do not count as a gauge increase though, so as you'll see, we still have a shell diameter of 0.18. Hold on a second, because I took all those. We're back to 0.06, which is the default. We'll take that off. We are still at 0.06. Nice and simple. Now let's plug another gauge increase back onto the top here, because that's like the other cannon, and we're up to 0.12 again. Sweet. Now, next on the list is the gauge cooling unit. This increases the cooldown, or decreases the cooldown rate of your cannon. Now, it doesn't show it here, but in this menu here, you've seen it shows the expected cooldown. Expected time for barrel to cool. So we have it at 0.12 at the minute. It'll have a 1.31 refire rate. So, if you have your barrel cooling down in 1.31 seconds, that is the maximum rate that you can stick shells into it and shoot them. It'll not let them fire any faster unless you use the cooldown feature, the overclocking feature, sorry, on the barrels, and you can sort of increase your fire rate past your cooldown at the cost of accuracy. It actually says it in this little tooltip here: accuracy and recoil increase. Or accuracy decreases, recoil increases. So you can sort of overclock your cannons a little bit, but these are a way to reduce the cooldown without fiddling with the overclocking settings and maintaining your accuracy and recoil. So, sorry, I also want to mention these are actually still being heavily balanced. Like I say, I'm in 1.853 at the minute, and they got changed heavily this patch, so We'll see how that turns out in the future. I don't expect their actual function to change at all, but how effective they are will change. Next on the list is getting stuff into the gun to shoot. So we need autoloaders. And let's just stick, we're going to build the exact same as what we have over here. Let's build 2 autoloaders. You can see on the sides, they've got like this little sort of ridgy texture and then circles on the front. Now you can connect these to 6-way connectors from the side, and you can connect them to each other by the front. They don't connect sideways, I believe. Oh sugar, we forgot our symmetry line. Let's put that in and rebuild these, and I'll put 2 of these on. Now I have 4 of these on for a reason, and I'll demonstrate whenever I finish the cannon. But autoloaders, they come in different lengths for different shell sizes, which we've seen in the configuration menu, and currently it goes up to 4 meters. I believe there's plans to go up to 8-meter shells, which will be world destroyers basically. The required shell is the loader size is shown in that menu. Each autoloader contributes to the reloading speed. So more autoloaders mean faster reloading, up to the limit of the cooldown. So if our cooldown isn't low enough, doesn't matter how many autoloaders we put on, the barrel won't be able to fire unless we enable overclocking. So that's basically it for autoloaders. There's a couple of funky things you can do with them, but we'll stick to the basics for now. And we'll move on to ammo clips. Now, ammo clips are like a buffer storage for extra bullets. Again, they come in different lengths and they have to correspond to the autoloaders that they're attaching to. You can attach them here, on top, to the sides, the bottom, anything at all. Anywhere that it has this little ridgy section on the side. Just take that one off the side. I'll put a couple more of these down. And these attach, you can see along the bottom of the screen there that they have like a yellow and black warning strip along the bottom, and that is the direction that they attach from. You can't put these on upside down, they won't connect properly. See, ammo clip not connected, so you have to get them up the right way around. And you can also stack these on top of each other for even bigger ammo buffers. Now, a word of warning with these, they explode. And they explode big time, and I believe they explode bigger if you have high explosive shells loaded. So just be careful with them. Protect them really, really well. Now, next, we're onto the ammo input feeder. And that's this bad boy. Now this is the mechanism for getting your shells from over here onto here. So, let's plonk 2 of these on. And we'll plonk 2 on the other side just to keep everything nice and filled up. And, oh wait, we have nothing coming in yet. But we have to configure them. Now you'll see here, our outputs are already taken. And this is connecting to that controller over there. But we have an extra 8 down here, and we can just assign all the ones that aren't already assigned. But these correspond directly, 1 for 1, to these guys. So for every 1 input controller, you need 1 output controller. You can, however, match these up to various different guns. As you can see, that shell producer is working for both of these weapons, and these should be starting to load shells. There we go. That's lovely. Like I say, sorry, I'm just working through a list here to keep everything sort of organized. There's a lot of information in this system. Yes, these can be placed on a clip or an autoloader. It was added in this patch that you can load directly into an autoloader, so you don't actually need these at all. You can connect one of these just directly to the autoloader and make sure it's feeding in fast enough for the cannon to, have permanent rate of fire. Next on the list, and the last piece that we're going to be using in this build, is the target predictor. This is a nice simple little block, much like the old target predictor for advanced cannons, or for your good old custom cannons. And you'll see it gives you a lovely little line to tell you the trajectory of your weapon. And now, ta-da! We have a working cannon. And this is a very, very basic, but actually quite powerful cannon. Let's fire these off. You'll see 982 kinetic damage, 66.45 fragmentation damage. That's a fairly reasonable shot, and you see just how far it goes. So that's pretty cool. That's basically it for building your very, very first cannon. I mean, obviously you can expand this in various different ways, but one thing I do want to note about this particular cannon build and how the cooldown relates to the autoloaders is I've designed this in such a way that if you fire all 4 rounds off, 3, 4, you see it has a little bit of time to reload. And that's because the cooldown is faster than the autoloaders can refill the barrel. So this cannon basically means it needs more autoloaders. If I put another autoloader on, it'll probably be able to fire repeatedly without having to stop and reload. But again, that will overbalance the cooldown rate. So then I'm losing a little bit of efficiency in the cooldown rate. And you can see it's an incredibly complex system that's based on very, very little tweaks and changes, and you can do so much with it. It's absolutely beautiful. But that is a quick look at the basic cannons using very, very basic shells. Obviously you can lump different shells into this thing and do all sorts of crazy stuff. You can change it to 6 barrels, just like that. Obviously this will probably need more autoloaders for that. But look at that. It's like a wee nail gun type thing. But obviously the kinetic damage has dropped drastically, but the fire rate has really, really went up. So that's a very, very quick look at sort of basic custom cannons, how to put them together, and hopefully you guys can have a lot of fun with your own custom cannons. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it and you want to see more like this in the future, please click that like button. This really helps other people find the channel and hopefully help other people out with these tutorials. And if you have any suggestions to improve the channel, or you just want to say hi, I really like hearing from you guys. I read every single comment, and I'll do my best in the future to improve the channel and make it more interesting for you guys. Hope this was helpful to people. As always, take it handy and have a bloody good day.